History is a story we tell ourselves about the past, a story of rise and fall, of triumph and decay. We look at the ruins of great civilizations and imagine we can pinpoint the exact moment it all went wrong. A lost battle, a foolish king, a natural disaster. But the truth is more subtle and far more unsettling. Empires do not collapse when they look weak. They collapse when they still look powerful, invincible even. The armies still march, their discipline a spectacle of strength. The flags still fly, symbols of an unwavering national pride. The leaders still give speeches, their words echoing through grand halls and public squares, promising prosperity and security. And the people still believe. They believe in the headlines, in the parades, in the sheer, overwhelming presence of the system. They believe it can and will survive. This is the great paradox of power. But underneath the surface, the foundation is already cracking. The gears of the state, once perfectly meshed, begin to grind. This is the illusion of stability. A dangerous state where the performance of strength becomes more important than the reality of resilience. It's a phenomenon as old as civilization itself, a pattern repeated across cultures and continents. Rome had it, as its legions guarded ever-expanding borders while the political core hollowed out from within. The Ottoman Empire had it, its bureaucracy becoming a labyrinth of procedure, stifling the very innovation that once made it great. The British Empire had it, projecting power across the globe while the economic and social costs mounted back home, unseen and unaddressed. Different rulers, different centuries, different lands, but the same final pattern. The illusion of stability becomes stronger, more comforting than the complex and often unpleasant reality. Normalcy bias takes hold, the belief that because things have always been a certain way, they will continue to be that way. Warning signs are dismissed as exceptions, not trends. The incentives shift. It becomes more rewarding to manage the perception of stability than to perform the hard, unglamorous work of actual maintenance. The problem solvers are sidelined in favor of the storytellers. And when that happens, when a society values the symbols of its strength over the sources of its strength, collapse is no longer a question of if. The first domino has already been pushed. The only question left is when. Welcome to Echoes of Empire, where history is not just remembered, it is decoded. Today, we are breaking down the final pattern before every empire collapses. Not the battle, not the invasion, not the one bad ruler. There is a deeper pattern that appears before the fall of great powers. A recurring, almost predictable sequence of events that whispers of endings while the world still hums with the noise of its own perceived permanence. It is a pattern written in the ledgers of history, from the sun-baked clay tablets of Sumer to the digital archives of our own time. To understand it is to see beyond the headlines, beyond the immediate crises, and to recognize the subtle, tectonic shifts happening beneath the surface of civilization. Part 1. The Empire looks strongest before it breaks. Most people imagine collapse as sudden, violent chaos. Our minds conjure images straight from epic films, burning cities, their flames reflecting in the eyes of fleeing crowds, invading armies, their standards a stark silhouette against a blood-red sky. We picture empty treasuries, their cavernous vaults echoing with the ghosts of squandered wealth and starving citizens, their faces etched with desperation as they queue for a final scrap of bread. This is the spectacle of failure, the dramatic final act. But the most dangerous stage comes long before that. It is a quieter, more insidious period. It is the moment when the empire still looks normal, even magnificent. This is the great paradox. The system often appears most powerful, most unassailable, right before the fractures begin to show. On the surface, the vital signs are strong. Trade still moves, filling ports with goods from distant lands. Officials still collect taxes, the lifeblood of the state, flowing into the central coffers. The rich still celebrate, their galas and banquets a dazzling display of confidence and prosperity. And most importantly, the government still claims absolute control, its leaders projecting an aura of unwavering authority from grand podiums. This is the illusion of stability. It is a powerful and seductive mirage. The machinery of the state, the bureaucracy, the military, the economy, continues to turn. The system still functions on the outside, a vast and intricate clockwork that appears to be in perfect working order. But inside, something vital is corroding. The system is losing three essential qualities: trust, discipline, and adaptability. Trust in the institutions, in the currency, in the future itself, begins to wane. Discipline, both in the military ranks and in the fiscal management of the state, starts to fray. And adaptability, the ability to respond to new challenges, ossifies into rigid, self-serving dogma. History provides the blueprint. Rome did not fall in one day. For decades, even centuries before the final collapse, Rome still had emperors, armies, laws, taxes, and magnificent cities. It was, by all outward measures, the master of its world. But the old strength was hollow. The empire was spending ever more treasure and blood to defend its sprawling borders, a concept known as imperial overstretch. Its leaders changed with dizzying, often violent frequency, creating a crisis of legitimacy at the very top. The tax burden on the provinces grew heavier and more complex, not to fund new growth, but simply to maintain a system groaning under its own weight. As the state debased its currency to pay its bills, citizens lost faith in the value of their money and their work. The army, once a symbol of unified Roman power, became a collection of private forces, more loyal to charismatic commanders who promised plunder and payment than to a distant, abstract state. This is where we see the critical split between performance and stability. The state becomes obsessed with the of power. Grand speeches, military parades, monumental construction projects. It pours its resources into maintaining the image of strength. Meanwhile, the foundations of true, fair laws, sound money, infrastructure maintenance, and social cohesion are neglected. The rules that once governed society begin to feel arbitrary. They are applied to some, but not others. The connection between effort and reward is severed. Why innovate? Why build? Why save? When the system itself seems rigged. This leads to a dangerous incentive drift. The rewards of the system no longer flow to the problem solvers, the engineers, the farmers, the innovators. Instead, they are captured by the image keepers, the courtiers, the propagandists, the financial engineers who can navigate the complex, decaying bureaucracy. The person who can warn of a coming famine is ignored. The person who can explain why the famine isn't really happening is promoted. The machine was still moving. The gears of the empire continued to grind, a testament to its sheer size and inertia. But the engine was damaged. Key components were worn thin, stressed beyond their limits. The people who built the machine and knew how to fix it were gone, replaced by operators who only knew how to polish the exterior. This is the quiet, perilous moment when an empire, a nation, or any great institution is at its most fragile. Not when it is visibly weak, but when it is visibly, beautifully, and hollowly strong. Modern relevance. This is why history matters, not as a collection of stories, but as a data set of human behavior at scale. It offers a blueprint for recognizing the patterns that repeat again and again across centuries. The lesson isn't that every modern nation is a new Rome. The real insight is more universal. Every powerful system, from a multinational corporation to a national government, eventually faces the same seductive temptation: to protect the image instead of repairing the foundation. This is the critical flaw of complex systems. We call it a maintenance deficit. The slow, unglamorous work of upkeep is deferred in favor of managing perceptions. The gears of the machine appear to be turning perfectly. Companies do it, prioritizing quarterly earnings and stock prices over long-term investment in research, infrastructure, and employee well-being. The facade of profitability masks a growing brittleness within. Governments do it, crafting policy for polls and headlines, while the core functions of the state, education, infrastructure, public trust, quietly erode. The incentives drift, rewarding those who manage the story, not those who solve the problems. Kingdoms did it. Empires did it. They all learned too late that reality cannot be deferred forever. The warning is simple. When the effort to maintain the appearance of strength becomes greater than the effort to maintain strength itself, the end is no longer a matter of if, but when. When stability becomes performance, decline has already begun. Closing CTA. If you want history explained through the hidden patterns of power, collapse, and survival, subscribe to Echoes of Empire. Every civilization leaves warnings behind. The question is whether we are willing to read them. Chapter 0, The Illusion of Stability, 0.37, Why Empires Look Strong Before Collapse, 135, Why Warning Signs Are Ignored, 2.35, Comfort Becomes Dangerous, 3.32, The System Rewards the Wrong People, 4.35, The Final Collapse Pattern, 5.35, What This Means Today.